In this video, I'll be checking out the VANTrue N4 or Nexus 4 Pro 3-channel dash camera. The front camera is a 4K ultra-high definition camera using a newer Sony Starvis 2 IMX678 image sensor with HDR support. The cabin or interior camera is a 1080p camera with infrared LEDs for nighttime visibility, and the rear camera is also a 1080p camera. VANTrue did provide free of charge the dash camera, a 256GB memory card, and a 40mm CPL filter for the front camera. I will provide my unbiased testing results and review opinions in this review. So, let's get into it. This video contains several video chapters. If there's one of particular interest to you, jump to the time index listed on the screen here, or expand the video description section and click on the link down there. Hope you enjoy the video. I'm including some day and night video samples from the N4 Pro 3-channel dash camera in this review video. This video is more of a technical review video. I do have two separate videos that show daytime comparison footage between the N4 Pro and a Viofo A229 Pro 3-channel dash camera, and then another video that shows that same comparison between those two cameras, but at night. So you might want to check in the video description section for the links to those two videos, so you can check out the full comparison between those two dash cameras. The videos that I'm showing you now have HDR enabled day and night, but in the nighttime samples I do have the infrared LEDs turned off in this particular situation for the N4 Pro, which makes the cabin look a little darker in certain situations. Let's start off with an unboxing of the N4 or Nexus 4 Pro 3-channel dash camera. Taking a look at the box for the N4 Pro, in the upper left is the top of the box, upper right is the bottom side of the box, lower left is the box cover removed. It shows an insert that's present, and it shows the proper connection points for the power and rear camera cables with the front unit. In the lower right we have the insert removed. You can see the front unit, which has the front camera and cabin camera. In the very center is the rear camera. On the left side is the accessory bundle box, and there are additional items below those items we'll see later in the unboxing. This shows various viewpoints of the front unit. Upper left is the rear side of the unit with the protective cover, which explains the button presses of the buttons on the lower left side of this particular screen. In the upper right we see the front side of the unit. You can see the front lens, which has a protective plastic cover on it right now, and also the 40mm opening that the front camera CPL filter screws onto. In the very center is a magnetic mount point and power connection point for the GPS data and the power for the front camera unit. And in the lower right you can see the top of the unit where the rear camera cable connects to the front unit. Here are some additional views of the front unit. In the upper left and upper right, we have the end with the power and emergency recording button, that orange plastic button in the very middle there. That cap does come off of the end of the front unit. There's a metal ring on the inside of that cap that is magnetically held to the side of the front unit. Underneath that, we can see the memory card slot on the upper right and the recessed reset button. In case the unit is unresponsive, you can use that to restart it. In the lower left, we can see the other end, which is just a decorative cap. And in the lower right, we can see the rear side of the unit with that protective cover removed, as well as the cabin camera. The cabin camera included with the N4 Pro is a unit that can be rotated up and down. The left and right adjustment is based on the front camera aiming, so you're only able to really adjust it up and down to better aim it inside of the vehicle. It is a 1080p full high definition camera, and it does include 4 infrared LEDs to illuminate the passenger compartment at night. We're now taking a look at the rear camera included with the N4 Pro is the VANTrue RC04 1080p full high definition rear camera. It has its own processor and its own firmware, and is connected to the front camera with a lengthy USB-C cable included in the box. It is the same rear camera that is used with the VANTrue S1 Pro dash camera. On this screen we have the items that are in the accessory bundle box I pointed out earlier in the unboxing segment. On the left we have the cable installation tool. It helps you install cables inside the interior trim of your vehicle. My standard caution here is never route any cable from any product over an airbag. Make sure you route it behind the airbag to make sure the airbag can deploy properly in case of an accident. Moving to the right of the installation tool are the 2 spare adhesive pads, the larger one for the front windshield mount, the smaller one for the rear camera mount. In the upper center is the front windshield mount, which is the GPS receiver and power connection for the front unit. It is magnetically connected to the front camera. In the lower center we have the cigarette lighter or power port adapter. It contains a hardwired 3.5 meter or 11.48 foot cable that is connected to that front windshield mount, and it does contain a USB Type A port if you wish to power something else in the vehicle. It is not recommended to be used for the power for parking mode, since there is no low voltage protection feature included in that power accessory. Moving on to additional items in the box, we have the VANTrue N4 Pro Quick User Guide, and we have a box with 2 additional cables in it. One is the rear camera cable, which is 6 meters or 19.68 feet in length. It has USB-C connections at each end, and the cable is fairly thick, so it's a little bit more difficult than some other cameras as far as a rear camera cable to route through the vehicle. And then there is a data cable, which has a USB-A to USB-C conversion, and it is 1 meter in length or 3.28 feet. This screen shows the last items included in the Nexus 4 Pro box. There's a lens cleaning cloth. In the upper center there are 2 static stickers which can be used to install the front and rear camera units to the inside window glass. It's supposed to allow you to remove the adhesive pads from the static sticker more easily. I found some good or bad installation of those, so I tend to avoid them myself and just use the adhesive pads on the windshield mounts. There are 2 adhesion promoters in the 2 packets in the lower center, and 2 stickers if you wish to use them to announce the fact that you have a dash camera inside your vehicle. Here's one of the optional accessories that VANTrue did provide for this review. It's the 40mm CPL filter for the front camera. I have found that you must make sure that it's fully screwed on to the front camera mounting point. It can back off and rattle while driving. I've had that occur a couple of times during my testing. Once fully secured, it does seem to stay in place, but make sure that you fully screw it onto the front camera mount. This accessory will help reduce the amount of windshield glare or reflections that might occur on the inside of the front windshield in the recorded video. The VANTrue N4 Pro does not include a memory card in the box, but VANTrue did provide a VANTrue branded 256GB memory card for this review. Make sure you purchase a high quality memory card such as a VANTrue memory card or similar quality product, since memory cards can be one of the main sources of problems with any dash camera. This dash camera does support memory cards of up to 512GB in capacity. An additional accessory available for the N4 Pro dash camera is the VANTrue Bluetooth wireless remote control. It is a 2-button unit, with the top button being used to toggle the audio recordings on and off, and the bottom button is used to initiate an emergency recording. In this section of the video, I'll go over a feature comparison of the VANTrue N4 Pro 3 channel, comparing it to similar competitors, and in this case I've selected the Viofo A229 Pro 3-channel, 2-channel offering, and also the Viofo A229 Plus 3-channel and 2-channel offering. Both of those use the Sony Starvis 2 image sensor. The 229 Pro uses the same IMX678 image sensor as the N4 Pro, and the A229 Plus uses the IMX675 for 2K footage from the front camera. I'm not going to discuss each feature on this list of features on this screen and the following screen. I'll leave that to you to pause the video so you can check them out yourself, but I will point out some notable differences. One notable difference is the screen size. The N4 Pro has a 3.19-inch IPS screen, and that's in a diagonal measurement, and it's in a rectangular shape, versus the 2.4-inch more squared shape LCD screens on the A229 series dash cameras. The next difference being the video codec used by each of the dash cameras to encode the video stream within the video file. For the N4 Pro, that's the H.265 or HEVC video codec. And for the Viofo dash cameras, that's the older H.264 AVC video codec. The H.265 should allow for better compression of the video, but make sure that your device, whatever you're going to display that video on, be it your phone or a computer, can handle H.265 or HEVC video. The next notable feature difference is the voice notifications feature. The N4 Pro does not have that feature, while the Viofo cameras do have that feature. Voice notifications are notifications from the dash camera when notable actions are taken by the dash camera, and that is not included with the N4 Pro. It would be nice if that were included in a future release. Moving on to the second page of the feature comparison chart, I'm noting that the parking mode recording options are something that should be examined across these three cameras. The VANTrue N4 Pro has 4 distinct parking mode options: collision detection, which is a low power consumption mode that the Viofo cameras do not offer; motion detection, which is buffered, which means it's documented as 10 seconds, but it seems to have about 8 seconds before the triggering motion event, and 30 seconds after the triggering motion event for a total video length of 40 seconds. Low bitrate without audio, which gives you 1080p footage at 15 frames per second or 720p footage at 15 frames per second. And then low frame rate without audio, which you can configure as 1, 5, 10, or 15 frames per second. Looking at the options from Viofo, you have auto event detection, which is a motion detection based. It does react to impact events as well, and those are both buffered at 15 seconds before, 30 seconds after. You have a time-lapse offering, which also is without audio, but you have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 10 frames per second. And then you have low bitrate with audio, which gives you coverage all of the time and recording audio the entire time you're in parking mode. Going back to the N4 Pro collision detection parking mode, there is a separate setting in the firmware settings to determine how collision detection works. It will by default be in power saving mode, which is a very low power consuming mode, considered like a deep sleep, and it will wait for an impact event to occur and then wakes up the camera to start recording. In my testing, it takes a full 13 seconds for that to awaken to the point of recording video. A lot can happen in 13 seconds after an impact event, so that's a very sluggish restart of the dash camera. So they added a quick start mode, which reduces that restart time to 5 seconds, but the power consumption does go up considerably. Look at the power consumption test results section of this video for more information on that. Moving on to the final item in this feature comparison chart, which is pricing. Each of the prices listed here are as of middle of July 2024. They are the list price on the company website in US dollars. They are often put on sale on the company website or on Amazon, and I will try to take advantage of that information and place it in the video description section. I will have affiliate links in the video description section, so if you found the information in this video to be helpful to allow you to make an informed decision if one of these dash cameras is right for you, please consider using that affiliate link where I will make a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. I would truly appreciate it. In this section of the video, I'll be covering the results from my power consumption tests of the N4 Pro 3-channel dash camera. I'm going to describe now the various sections of my spreadsheet so you understand how I'm presenting the data. At the very top, I have the description of the dash camera, including what's powering the dash camera and any firmware information available for that configuration. On the left-hand side, I have the configuration column showing you the mode of operation, like NR for normal recording or PM for parking mode, and the resolution configuration. Moving to the right, I have a group of 3 columns, which are the min, max, and average milliamp values as observed on a Fluke 117 multimeter, and that's at a steady voltage of 12.6 volts. The average milliamp value is the value used in calculations throughout the remainder of the spreadsheet and other spreadsheets that take data from this spreadsheet. Moving to the right again, we have a group of 3 columns, which are the watt values calculated from the milliamp values from the previous 3 columns. Next, we have the recording mode column. This notes the recording mode, such as normal for normal recording or PM for parking mode. Moving to the right, we arrive at the notes column. In this column, I'll note information such as bitrate of videos that were created in this particular test run, the length of the video and the parking mode configuration if appropriate, and the transition times into and out of that parking mode. In the lower left, I have a series of rows that identify special information about this particular configuration, the testing information, and any of the abbreviations that I use should be defined in this particular section. Since the text in the notes column is small from the screenshot of the Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to zoom in on the configuration column in the various groups and the text from the notes columns, so you can more easily read this in the video. This first configuration group is for the normal recording mode or driving recording mode. This is basically during normal operations while driving in the vehicle. And I list each of the resolution configurations available for the N4 Pro 3-channel dash camera. Looking at the notes column, I have reference to 15 minutes after a 10-minute auto timeout period for Wi-Fi. So the power consumption values were gathered over a 15-minute time period, but I waited until the Wi-Fi feature auto turned off, which is 10 minutes after it powers up. Then looking at the second line in each of the rows of this particular notes column, you'll see a reference to the bit rate for each of the video files, F for front, C for cabin, and R for rear. Moving on to the first group of parking mode configurations, we have the collision detection power saving mode, which is the preferred or recommended parking mode for warm or hot environments. And there are two sub-modes to this, the power saving mode, which is the older traditional operational mode for collision detection, which goes into a deep sleep, and then the quick start mode was added sometime in the last year, where it would keep the camera partially awake and it would respond more quickly to an impact event. But let's take a look at the notes column to see what that actually means. For collision detection power saving mode, while it's waiting for an impact, it goes into a deep sleep and it consumes very little power. As we can see in the power columns, it consumes 16 milliamps on average and 0.2 watts. The second row in this group is for collision detection power saving mode when an impact event is detected by the dash camera. The camera is awakened at that point, and it takes 13 seconds from the impact event for video to be recorded for all three channels. So that's a very long time delay, which almost makes it worthless at that point. And this being the recommended mode for the dash camera when in a warm or hot environment, is not a very responsive dash camera to impact events. It creates 60-second videos once it does start recording, and I show you the bit rates on the third line in the notes column there. And when switching from parking mode in collision detection power saving mode back to normal recording mode, it takes 16 seconds to switch modes. Moving on to the next offering for collision detection parking mode, and that's when the collision detection in parking mode firmware setting is set to quick start mode. When it goes into parking mode, it doesn't go into a deep sleep, nearly a powered off state like power saving mode does. It consumes about 8 times more power than the power saving mode does, but this keeps the camera partially awake, and when an impact event occurs, it reduces the amount of time it takes to start recording. But it still takes 5 seconds from the impact event for recording to start. That's still quite a long delay. It should be under 2 seconds if possible. Moving on to the remaining 3 parking mode types for the N4 Pro dash camera. First off, there's motion detection, then I have low bit rate, and then low frame rate. I've split motion detection into 2 rows because there's motion detection while it's waiting for motion to be detected, and then there's motion detection when it has detected motion. So the first row I've noted I had to set the sensitivity setting to the lowest value to allow me to run the test in my filming studio. That's just a personal note here. And then on the motion detection, when motion is detected, it writes 40-second videos. The documentation states it should have a buffered video and audio amount of 10 seconds before the motion event. I'm finding 8 seconds. So there's 8 seconds before and about 32 seconds after for the 40-second video that it does create for all 3 channels. It takes about 9 seconds to switch back to normal recording mode once the accessory power has been turned back on. And then moving on to low bit rate, I tested the 1080p 15 frames per second mode, and for all 3 channels it creates 3-minute video files at 1080p 15 frames per second with audio. I showed the bit rate for all 3 video files, which is approximately 4.92 megabits per second. It takes 7 seconds to switch into low bitrate parking mode, and it takes about 7 seconds to switch out of low bitrate parking mode back to normal recording mode. Moving on to low frame rate, I tested the default of 5 frames per second for this particular parking mode, and it creates 1-minute video files with no audio with a playback speed of 30 frames per second. I showed the bitrate for those particular video files, and again, this also takes 7 seconds to switch into this particular parking mode and to switch back to normal recording mode as well. Again, looking at the power consumption values, they're fairly large for the motion detection. They're a little bit smaller for the low bit rate and low frame rate. But again, VANTrue suggests that you use the collision detection parking mode in warm and hot environments. So make sure that you're aware of how it behaves and how much power it consumes so you can make your best choice. The entries in this last section are for the people that are interested in how much power the dash camera consumes when it's quote-unquote off, and how the hardwire kit behaves. I have the 3-wire hardwire kit that has the dip switches on the side that allows you to set the low voltage cutoff values. So just by powering off the dash camera using the button on the side of the N4 Pro, it will drop to 35 milliamps initially, and then it goes down to 19 milliamps within 2 minutes and 18 milliamps for 10 minutes, which is 0.23 watts ongoing. So even though it's off, it's still drawing a small amount of power, and that might be nice to take advantage of when you arrive home and you don't need it to record in your garage. You can press the power button and have it power down to that low power consumption state. Next, we have the hardwire kit. After a low voltage cutoff, I had it configured for 11.9 for the cutoff, and it actually turned off at 11.95 volts. And then for when it's not connected to the dash camera at all, how much power does it consume just by itself? And I found that to be 12 milliamps on average, or 0.15 watts. Taking the information from the previous screens, I've put together a time estimate chart for the VANTrue N4 Pro 3-channel dash camera for the various parking modes. And I'm using the average watt values that I obtained through my power consumption testing. And I'm using 2 popular dashcam battery pack capacities for the time estimates, a 76.8 watt hour and a 96 watt hour, which tends to be the higher end, at least in the United States, as far as the capacity for dashcam battery packs at this point in mid-2024. So you can see that collision detection power saving mode will last almost 20 days. You might want to decrease these by about 10 or 15% since the hardwire kit does have a low voltage cutoff feature, which will turn out the power before it's fully exhausted the stored capacity in the dashcam battery packs. So take these as an estimate only. I can't guarantee that they will reach that value, but at least gives you a general idea of what might be obtainable with the dash camera in the various parking mode configurations. Let's take a look at the app that I use to work with the N4 Pro, and that's the VANTrue Connected App. This is an Android 10 device. I've worked with the N4 Pro before, so let's click on Connect Your Device. The Wi-Fi information, such as the credentials, are already known, so it's going to auto-connect to the N4 Pro. And once we get connected, we'll be presented with a live view screen and some options about turning on and off audio, switching between cameras, looking at the stored video, which is on the bottom there. And I'm going into the settings. And first we'll take a look at the resolution configuration, and depending on how many cameras are operational, you'll have an option for the resolution setting for that configuration. And let's take a look at the HDR setting, which is something that can be set per camera. There is no timer function for this, but it is settable per camera. And if we look at loop recording, you can set it to 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes, or off. Typically it's left at 1 minute. Now let's take a look at the parking mode options. You have collision detection, motion detection, low bit rate, and low frame rate. And if there are settings within each of those, you'll see that when you select that particular parking mode type. And then let's go back out here, and if we scroll down, we'll see more settings that are available. And here for collision detection, you have power saving mode and quick start mode, which is a separate option in the firmware settings. And then down here, we can take a look at the system info, which shows the firmware versions. And notice that the front camera is EDB181. That'll be important in just a moment. Now I'm going to go back out to the top live preview section. I'm going to click on the photo album contents, which is the bottom option there. In the SD card folder are all the video files that have been recorded by this dash camera over the past several days. And from that, you can choose a video file It's broken up into subgroups, so normal video, collision videos, parking mode videos, and snapshot images. I'm going to go into normal video. It's going to display some thumbnails of the video on the memory card. I'm going to scroll back to July 12, 2024 and select a video from the front camera, which is 232 megabytes in size. Then I'll select playback by clicking on it. And then when I'm beginning to play the video, I'm going to pause it. And then I'm going to go to the lower right there and click on the download arrow, which will download that video file to this Android 10 device. I will speed up the download of the file. It's a 232 megabyte video file, and it'll take a total of 26 seconds, and that's over this 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection. So the download has succeeded, and it'll be in the local video file repository on the Android 10 device within the app. So if we're going back out one more level, we should see that mobile local folder. That's where that video file will be stored. Now we're going back to the live preview. I'm going to use the alignment icon to display the alignment lines for the horizon and left-right adjustments. And I'm going to exit back to the main level here, and it has detected the fact that the firmware for the front camera has an available update. So it's going to go ahead and present the screen showing the firmware update that's available. And then if I click download, it will download it to the Android 10 device in a local repository for the app. And once it has been downloaded, I will have the option to then send it up to the dash camera. So this over-the-air firmware update is a nice feature if it detects that there's a version available for it. So transfer to the dash cam immediately. We'll send it over a Wi-Fi connection between my Android 10 device and the N4 Pro. And it is sending the firmware up there, and since it is a front camera firmware, it will require me to reset all the firmware settings since those will be defaulted, at least in this particular update. It did reset everything to the defaults, and the on-screen display had me picking time zone, various options you typically see with a new firmware or a brand new device. After the N4 Pro installs the firmware and reboots, I'm going to connect through the VANTrue Connected App back to the N4 Pro. And it's going to connect over the Wi-Fi connection here in just a moment. There we go. And because the settings have been defaulted, it's going to display the GPS location, which I've blurred on the screen. I typically turn that off in the videos since I don't like sharing my home location or where I'm driving. I can always get that from the GPS data if necessary. And we're going to take a look at the system info and see if we have the EDG051 firmware in the front, and we do. So the firmware upgrade was successful. Let's go through my final thoughts on the VANTrue Nexus 4 or N4 Pro dash camera. Let's start off by taking a look at the list of pros for this dash camera. Starting off the list, the front image sensor is the newer Sony Starvis 2 IMX678 image sensor, which is the newer generation from Sony, and it delivers much better video image quality, and it is a true 4K image sensor. Moving on to the next item, we have the fact that this dash camera is 3-channel capable. The front camera is 3840 by 2160 max resolution capable. The rear camera is 1920 by 1080, and the cabin camera is also 1920 by 1080 max resolution capable. Moving on to the next item, we have the dual mode GPS module. It's built into the windshield mount, so there's no extra module to mount on the windshield and no cables to run. And of course, the GPS module allows the dash camera to embed within the video files the current location and speed information, which is useful in various situations. Moving on to the next item, all 3 cameras in the N4 Pro have HDR or high dynamic range support. HDR support allows the image sensors to capture the best areas of the brights and the dark areas in the image within the field of view. Moving on to the next item on the list, which is voice commands, or voice control as it's called for the N4 Pro. Using simple phrases, you can control the operations of the N4 Pro, like locking the video, turning on and off Wi-Fi, taking a photo. This allows you to continue driving the vehicle and focus on driving rather than trying to reach for the camera to push a button. Moving on to the next item, there are 4 parking modes supported by the N4 Pro dash camera. You have collision detection, which has 2 sub-modes. There's a power saving mode and a quick start mode, then motion detection, low bit rate, which includes audio, and low frame rate, which has no audio. VANTrue does recommend using the collision detection parking mode when the N4 Pro is used in summer or hot environments. I do have some concerns on how that collision detection parking mode operates in the power consumption section of the video, I went into detail on that, but I will briefly mention that in the cons section in this section of the video. Moving on to the next item, the N4 Pro supports 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi connections. Supporting 5 GHz Wi-Fi connections allows the transfer of video files from the N4 Pro to your phone at a pace up to 4 times faster than over 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi connections. My last item in the list of pros for the N4 Pro is the fact that it supports memory cards of up to 512 gigabytes in capacity. It's a 3-channel dash camera. You'll be writing a lot of video files, and depending on your driving habits and length of trips, you may want to have a larger memory card in the dash camera to support the storage of the entire trip on the memory card. I would recommend purchasing either a VANTrue branded memory card or another high quality memory card, since memory cards are one of the largest support issues for dash cameras. If you go with an inexpensive card, you may end up paying the price and losing the memory card contents or causing problems retrieving video files. So I would recommend getting a high quality memory card with the purchase of this camera as well. Moving on to my list of cons for this dash camera, the first item is a memory card issue as well. The N4 Pro does not include a memory card in the box. So at the time of purchase of the N4 Pro, you have to make a separate purchase of a memory card. It would be nice if VANTrue included a memory card in the box to at least assure the user that the dash camera works. It may not be as large of a capacity that they need, but that's up to them to decide whether they need to purchase an additional memory card to have the appropriate capacity for their driving habits. Moving on to my next con for the N4 Pro on my list, it's related to the interior camera being part of the front camera body. This limits where you can place the front camera body, since you have to allow the interior camera to be placed in a position that it can see into the passenger compartment, and so the infrared LEDs can also illuminate the passenger compartment at night. There's also no separate left-right adjustment for the interior camera, so you only have an up and down adjustment. So whatever the aiming that's required for the front camera is going to impact the left and right visibility of the interior camera. It'd be nice if it were a separate unit. That also would probably require a cable, but at least you would have more flexibility in the placement of the interior camera. Moving on to my next con for this dash camera, it's related to the rear camera focus quality. VANTrue includes the RC04 rear camera with the N4 Pro, and this rear camera seems to have a problem after being exposed to sun or heat for about 15 to 20 minutes. It starts to have a degraded focus quality, very blurry, and after 2 or 3 hours it's exceptionally blurry. I was sent an upgraded version of the RC04 that was supposed to correct this issue, but after my testing, it may have delayed by 10 or 15 minutes the beginning of the change in the focus quality, but after 2 or 3 hours, it's still as blurry as the original. My next con for this dash camera is the number of dropped and duplicated video frames I observed in the front and cabin video files. Whenever I test a dash camera, I pull video file samples looking for dropped or duplicated video frames in those video files. And for the front camera, it's not as bad as the cabin video files, where there's a large number of dropped and duplicated video frames for the cabin video files, but the front one does have a sampling of them as well. And when it comes to HDR, especially at night, sometimes it can come down to a single frame that is the best capture of a license plate. So if it drops, or if it's duplicated, that's not as much of a problem, of course, but if it drops that video frame, you're potentially losing that best frame that captures the plate that you're wanting to get from the accident or whatever event you're wanting to capture that information from. So I consider this an issue. I've reported it to VANTrue, and there doesn't seem to be much interest in pursuing the issue going forward. You'll notice it when playing back the video files. There will be a bit of stuttering during the playback, and that's from the duplicated frames, or the drop frames are a little bit harder to see. If you go frame by frame in a video player, you will probably most easily see those. So keep that in mind when it comes to making your choice for this dash camera as well. Moving on to my last con for the N4 Pro dash camera, it's how the collision detection parking mode behaves. This is the recommended parking mode by VANTrue for sun, warm, hot environments where a lot of heat can be captured in the passenger compartment and making the dash camera very warm during parking mode. So they recommend this as the option, and there are 2 sub modes to that parking mode. There's the power saving mode, which allows the dash camera to go into a very deep sleep. It only consumes 0.20 watts in a 3-channel configuration, but it takes 13 seconds to after the impact is detected for it to start recording. A lot can happen in 13 seconds. Basically, I consider that almost worthless. 13 seconds is far too long to wait for the recording to start. It needs to start within 2 seconds, in my opinion, based on other dash cameras that can do this. They added a quick start mode in the firmware in the last year, and that consumes nearly 8 times the amount of power at 1.56 watts for the 3-channel configuration, but it only reduces the startup time to 6 seconds. Again, a lot can happen between the impact event and 6 seconds after the impact event. So it consumes a lot of power and still is too slow. So if this is the recommended parking mode for warm, hot environments by VANTrue, this is not acceptable. This needs to be fixed in a future release if they can fix it. If you're watching this part of the video, you've reached the end of my review of the VANTrue N4 or Nexus 4 Pro 3-channel dash camera. I appreciate your time watching the video. I hope you found it to be informative. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification to be notified when I upload new videos just like this. Remember to look in the video description section for the links to the sample videos I have, one daytime and one nighttime, comparing the VANTrue N4 Pro 3-channel against the Viofo A229 Pro 3-channel dash camera. If you decided to purchase one of those dash cameras, also look in this video's description section for the affiliate links that I have there to purchase those products. If you do use one of those affiliate links, I will earn a commission on that purchase, but at no extra cost to you, and it's a great way to support the channel. I hope we both learned something through this product review video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.